I'm attorney Michael Tyler, bringing you guests and information to help you get legal. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to another installment of Get Legal with Attorney Tyler. I'm your host, Attorney Michael Tyler. Today I want to talk about a topic that I feel is very important to this particular area of the state. And really it is important to the entire state, but today I'm speaking to this area of the state. And that topic is domestic violence. Domestic violence is something that is definitely on the rise within the East Baton Rouge Parish area. The effects of domestic violence is definitely something that is being felt by everyone throughout this area. And the reason why that is because domestic violence is causing the crime statistics in this area to go up. It's causing for more police to be on the road and more police intervention to be in play. Looking at the statistics, according to District Attorney Hiller Moore's office, just last year in 2017, East Baton Rouge Parish experienced 14 domestic violence related homicides. Of those 14, 4 were of the murder-suicide variety. That is just absolutely sad. Intervention is necessary. Help is necessary. And segueing into our guest today, we're going to be introducing you to Legal Services Director Sarah Margaret Smith. Ms. Smith, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Michael.
I hope you don't mind. I'm just going to call you Sarah. Is that fine?
That's fine.
Okay. So Sarah, if you would, tell us a little bit about the Iris Domestic Violence Center.
The Iris Domestic Violence Center is the oldest and largest domestic violence provider in the state of Louisiana. It's been around since the early 80s. It was formerly known as the Capital Area Family Violence Intervention Center, or the Battered Women's Program. At Iris, we have a shelter where we house women and children who are fleeing abusive relationships. It's in a confidential location. It can house up to 52 women and children at a given time. We also have a crisis line that people can call in if they're ever having any problems or just questions. We offer residential services to those that are in the shelter, as well as non-residential services. That's safety planning, danger assessment. We provide financial assistance because when people do come into the shelter or are considered victims of domestic violence, they're actually deemed homeless. So a lot of times people are fleeing situations and fleeing all of the income that they've ever known. So we provide them with the financial assistance.
And in that vein, I'm going to take it that your main interaction is on the legal end.
Yes, so, and we also have a legal component. And we have myself, I'm the director. We have 3 contract attorneys who dedicate their time and effort to help these victims of domestic violence. We service 7 parishes. It's East Baton Rouge, Iberville, Point Capee, West Baton Rouge, Ascension, and East and West Feliciana. And anyone who files a civil protective order, a petition for protection from abuse in those parishes, gets sent to our office. And if there's no conflict and they qualify for the services, we provide free legal representation to them in those hearings.
Okay. So now, when you're saying protective orders, what exactly are we talking about? So there are several types of protection orders. You can have a criminal protection order, or you can have a civil protective order. And a civil protective order is filed in family court. And the relationship is what makes it be filed in family court. And it's a former dating partner, a spouse, or a former spouse. It can be a child, or a household member, a former intimate partner or a current intimate partner, and that relationship is what causes it to be filed in family court. A petition for protection from abuse is a petition where people can file and get a protective order against their abuser. They cannot, it orders them not to abuse, harass, stalk, follow them, not to go within 100 yards of them, prevents them from contacting them via any electronic communication whatsoever or through a third party. And then there's other things, like we said, about the financial issues that people can get based on these orders.
whether or not it's exclusive use of a home, temporary custody of children, exclusive use of cars or personal belongings, and also they can request spousal support or child support in those orders. So the protective order can be for up to 18 months. However, there are some provisions that can be permanent, which would be the abuse, the contact, and not going within 100 yards, or to their place of employment. So whether or not a person would file, I think there are sometimes issues where people shouldn't file.
Okay.
Maybe they have filed in the past and it did not deter the abuser,
Okay.
and they would break, the order. But the paper trail is the important part. And if anyone has any questions about whether or not to file before they file, they can call the Iris Domestic Violence Center and someone will assist them with that. Our number is 389-3001. That's area code 225. And because sometimes, like I said, it may not be in their best interest, but that is really a case-by-case basis.
Okay. Now, with respect to the filing, if a person feels like they're being abused and they decide to go file, once they file, are they given any type of automatic protections once the filing goes through?
Yes. So in the 7 parishes that we represent, you go to the courthouse, go to the clerk's office, and that's where you fill out your petition.
Okay.
And there's an order that you're requesting things. It's a temporary restraining order, and it's signed ex parte by the judge, meaning that the other side does not have to be there to answer. It's signed based on the petition that you write, and those you have to go to court within 21 days of those. So it's usually a 2-week time frame that you would have court. But there are certain things that can be automatically granted for those people that file.
Okay. Now, before I get into my other questions, I sort of want to touch on something that you discussed there, so they can get the automatic protections. Once they're given these automatic protections, the other side eventually should be served with the protective order or the temporary restraining order. So I guess my question to you is, if a person is going to file, just real quickly, do you know or can you provide any tips for that person so that they can prepare themselves for what may happen after the other side gets a copy of what's been filed?
So of the things that we discussed about the abuse, harass, stalking, tracking monitor, or maybe if you get exclusive use of something or temporary custody of your children, when that is granted temporarily before the hearing, those provisions actually are already in place. They, once you get that piece of paper and it's got those boxes checked, you are covered by that. The issue becomes if someone hasn't been served with a protective order, they cannot be arrested for violating the temporary restraining order because they have not received it. It's got to be personal service. My advice to people that file these petitions for protection from abuse is that service is very important. So if you don't know the address of the person, sometimes that can make it difficult for us to then help you to obtain a permanent order.
And even with that, I know in my field, I do mostly personal injury work, and I have to do a lot of serving. So I know one of the things that I like to do, and I'm sure, I believe in some of our previous discussions, you told me you used to be a family law attorney. When it comes to service, one of the main things I look for when I have a defendant is where they're employed. And I usually try to serve them where they're employed. Do you find that even with these TROs, if the victims know where the person works, do you find that maybe that's best to serve them at work in order to make sure service is best perfected?
Yes, that is a very good suggestion. And something else, providing home address or work address, or even if you just say, I know he hangs out or she hangs out at this place, a lot of times, maybe a bar or a local, it could be anywhere.
Right.
But if you know that they're normally there, that information can be very helpful in getting them served.
Now, in preparing for today's show, again, I was looking at some of the information that District Attorney Hiller Moore's office has put out. And one thing that I saw, it was actually a quote in one of the local newspapers here. And that quote by Hiller Moore actually stated that, I want to say 2017, maybe including 16, I don't know, might be mutually exclusive, but he provided that his office prosecutes or handles roughly 3,000 domestic violence cases a year. With respect to what you guys do, would you say that your caseload somewhat matches the criminal side of it, or do you think your caseload is a little bit higher than the criminal side of it?
Well, given the fact that we do represent 7 parishes, I'm not really sure that I can compare what the District Attorney's Office in East Baton Rouge Parish does based on what we do, but I would say that those numbers are definitely comparable. There are a lot of times people will have criminal charges pending or the person's been arrested, but then they come to file a civil protective order because they can get the extra things that they need, the exclusive use of a house or a car, the temporary custody of children, because that's very important. And a lot of times abusers will use the children against the victim. So that allowing them to have that temporary custody is very important.
Now, from your, I guess, office's standpoint, do you have a tally on the average amount of cases you guys may handle on a monthly basis?
We open roughly 200 cases a month, and that's in the combination of all the parishes. However, the majority of them is in East Baton Rouge Parish. That doesn't mean we're going to handle them all, but every single one that is filed in the parishes comes to our office. And I would say the average amount of permanent protective orders that are issued, whether or not it be a trial or a stipulation, would be roughly, I'd say, between 80 and 100 for the year.
Wow. Wow, that's just very interesting for that subset of law to have so many cases on a monthly basis, passing across a desk, going in court. That's just astronomical to me. And to me, that shows where we're at within this immediate and local society when it comes to domestic violence. It's very rampant. And I guess within the numbers, being an accounting major, I guess one thing we can look at is within the numbers, we have an idea of what's going on. But the reality of it is that a lot of these incidences are not reported. And that's where it becomes very, very critical that education gets mounted so that people will know there are opportunities and services out there. Do you, to the best of your knowledge, do you guys have instances where a person may come in and state that the violence has been going on for a extended period of time, but now they're finally trying to get out of the situation? Do you guys have to deal with situations like that?
Yes, all the time. The national average is, I think, 6 times that it takes someone to finally leave their abuser. So they may file a protective order that many times before they actually decide, okay, I'm done with this and I'm ready to move forward. We do not judge anybody. They can file as many times as they want because it's the victimization and the cycle of the abuse is pretty devastating, and it's something that's very hard for people to get out of. And I can't explain why, but I do know that we're always here to help anyone and to not be ashamed if you've gone back to your abuser, because the promise and the control is what causes a lot of the domestic violence.
And just, I guess, real quick, for individuals who in the end may have received, let's say, the 18-month protective order that you spoke of, have you seen any instances where those individuals end up filing again after those 18 months?
Yes. I see instances where they file after 18 months. I see where they request to modify or extend the protective order because the abuser is still harassing them or contacting them. I've also seen instances where people will get protective orders and then request that they be dismissed because they're decided to work it out.
Now, Louisiana, the South in general, is a gun-loving community and area.
Yes.
Protective orders affect guns' rights, I believe. When we come back, we shall discuss how guns are being affected with respect to protective orders.